Good morning, everybody. Um, we're in Module 3, and I'm really shocked almost, I guess. I don't know if I'm getting older and it's just time is going faster, or if I've just been impressed with the level of participation and work that everybody's putting out. And it's probably a combination of the two, to be real, but I have been impressed, particularly week one. Discussions are sometimes one of those check the box exercise by folks. Okay, I've got to go in and I'm Joe and I'm here to learn about HR and blah, blah, blah. But you guys really, really impressive responses, both initially and with your peers. So kudos for that. Discussions, while they seem kind of mundane, they do have a very significant learning impact because you exchange ideas and you think about things differently. So great work there. Peeked a little bit at the week 2 stuff that is being submitted. Very impressive work there. So you guys need to pat yourselves on the back and understand that you're doing great things, and I've been very impressed with the work you've provided. So let's look at Module 3, and I wanted to do kind of a PowerPoint so we could go over some stuff because there's some heavy lifting this week. It's going to be a busy week, so manage time appropriately because there's some things that are going to take some time to do research on as well. The screenshot that you see on this particular slide is copied directly out of the course shell, so you can go back and look at it again if you want to. And we're really pivoting away from the perspective of laws like we've talked about for the past couple of weeks, and we're going to change to data. We're going to look at how data is used and why it's important, and that's a couple of the assignments that we're going to look at this week. Focus on that, and I'll talk about those more in depth. But first, one of my very first books I purchased was on data analytics, and I bought it a long time ago. To give you an idea how long ago it's been, I bought it at Borders Books. Now, Borders is no longer in business. They've since went out of business, but that kind of gives you an idea. It was like, HR analytics, what is this, and why is it important? And I read it, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Not a whole lot of places being used. Data was hard to find. It wasn't well sourced, if you will, to mine it and things like that. But I started into analytics and really like it. It's one of my favorite things about HR. But over the past probably 7 to 10 years, analytics has become much more important because HR has moved and transitioned from that administrative function where we keep the employee records, we hire people, we enroll them in benefits, and those boring paper-pushing type activities into strategic realms, roles, however you want to phrase that, and said, we want to be at the executive table, and we need to be at the executive table. The workforce is not the things that our grandparents and our parents did where we come in, we punched in, we sat at a desk, or we worked in a factory. Technology and the workforce has changed. Even the workplace has changed. So we need to be more strategic in how we do that. So how do we come up with that? We look at our data. What's our turnover? What's our engagement rate? Absenteeism rate. How many people are using our insurance? Those are all things that we may look at. And so there's a lot of data and a lot of things that you're going to look at and use to analyze how to maximize the workforce. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this week. So with that in mind, let me see if I can get there we go. My slide didn't want to advance. Apparently I was talking too long. So here you can see the resources. On the left column is things that you'll want to use and review, reading, videos, things of that nature. And then on the right are assignments that are going to be due this week. We're going to talk a little bit about 3-1 and 3-3. 3-2 is a quiz, pretty straightforward stuff, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on that. So 3.1, it's a workflow chart presentation. This is not a paper, this is a PowerPoint presentation. And again, if you click on the 3.1 and then go into the details on the rubric, you're going to see a lot of this information in more detail. My presentations are fairly brief on the slide presentation, so please feel free to review that data a little more in depth. We're looking for 3 slides, and I held up 4 fingers, but I meant 3 slides. 1 slide per rubric criteria. So we're going to talk about the steps in the communication process. You're going to talk about data sharing, privacy, and security. And then you're going to talk about communication of the data breach, because essentially what happened is you were tasked with creating a presentation. You were going to send it to the CEO, but instead you sent it to an employee with a similar or the same name. And I'll tell you, I've done that. On a personal note, one time I was having a disagreement with my ex-wife over the children, and instead of hitting forward, I hit reply, typed a rather scathing response, and hit send without paying attention. But I've also done it in the work setting where I've sent something and thought I was sending it to one person and sent it to another. Now, I've been fortunate that it wasn't anything confidential or high risk. However, make sure that you have the right person selected. So in this case, we accidentally sent something to somebody other than the intended recipient. So what you're doing is outlining those steps. So the first slide, you're going to create your flow chart. And this flow chart is available in the resources, so you'll be able to see that. You can use this one. If you go in and click in the boxes, you can edit it. You probably have to copy and paste it into a Word document or in the PowerPoint slide, but you can click in it, change the messages, or you can create your own flowchart. You are not required to use this one, but you should have a flowchart. So here's the rubric that we're going to be using to assess your work. So obviously you can see you're going to create that workflow chart that involves the steps. Confidential data is going to be talking about sharing confidential data and its impacts on privacy, security. Wouldn't hurt if you included any applicable laws such as HIPAA or the Workplace Privacy Act or anything like that. And then communication. Describe who you need to communicate with to let know there was a data breach. So that could be a compliance officer, it could be your HIPAA officer, it could be the IT manager. Sometimes in Microsoft, if you send an email, you can recall it. If the person doesn't have a preview box set up, it will basically recall that message and they can't open it, or they get a message that says this email was recalled by the recipient. So that might be an opportunity, but you probably still need to communicate that. So that's what we're looking for in 3.1. So the other one is the big Milestone 1 project. Of note, this assignment is a bit more time consuming, so please plan accordingly. It's a precursor to the Project 1 assignment that's due in Module 5. You're going to be working on a Department of Labor concern or complaint. You're going to be tasked with investigating the root cause of the complaint. So within the guidelines and rubric link toward the bottom are the job description and timesheet records that you'll need to review to create your risk memo. And you'll need to present the following findings. Should the employee be exempt or non-exempt? And as a reminder, exempt means they're not eligible for overtime. They may fall into one of the, I think it's 5 different exemption classifications, such as highly compensated, administrative, professional, outside sales. There's a number of them. Or they're non-exempt, which means they are eligible for overtime. So anything over 40 hours typically is paid at time and a half. These are administrative workers or call center sales that are not outside sales, and there's a differentiation there that's outside of the scope of what we're going to talk about today. So the second thing is the compensation correct based on the classification? And then you're going to outline the potential risks, or do we need more data to conclude our investigation? You'll take this information as you get feedback to incorporate into that Project 1 assignment that's due down the road. Now, I'm going to show you the rubric here. You can see I had to divide it up into the two columns so we could get the full thing on there. First one, determines employees exempt or not exempt. Don't just say the employee should be exempt or the employee should not be exempt. Provide some sufficient information as to why you came to that conclusion. Risk memo, should they be? And those two are going to kind of tie together. You're going to say, I think the employee should be exempt, and here is why. This is what I'm finding. This is the law that supports that, whatever that case may be. And then you're going to have your other ones. Now, you will see on this particular slide, we talk about the articulation of response, which is your writing mechanics, and citations and attributions. If you go back and look at the other rubric for the 3.1, you won't see that on there. However, for space purposes, I did not put it on that one, but I did put it on this one. So we'll be looking at grammar, sentence structure, and then your APA formatting as well. So things to think about. Obviously, got a lot of work to do, so I'm going to close out for now. But if you have questions or you need assistance, please let me know. That's what I'm here for. Happy to help. Glad to assist. But thanks, everybody, and have a great week.